The moment their eyes met across the crowded emergency room, time seemed to freeze. Dr. Alexander Reed, billionaire hospital owner who still insisted on working shifts, felt his heart stop as his ex-fiancée stumbled through the doors, clutching a tiny bundle to her chest. The baby's cries pierced the air as blood dripped from Sophia's temple. 5 years of silence shattered in an instant. What happened next would change everything. Alexander never expected to see Sophia again, not after she'd walked away from their engagement without explanation. Now here she was, pale and terrified, whispering, "Help us," before her knees buckled. As he rushed forward to catch them both, one thought consumed him: whose baby was this? The night shift at Memorial General Hospital had started like any other. Despite owning the entire healthcare network, Alexander maintained his medical practice, finding purpose in the work that his wealth couldn't provide. At 38, he had everything money could buy, except the family he'd once dreamed of building with Sophia. Dr. Reed to ER, stat. The page had come just minutes before Sophia's arrival. Some might call it coincidence. Alexander would later call it fate. "Soph," he whispered, lowering her onto a gurney while carefully supporting the infant. "What happened? Who did this to you?" Her eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning through the haze of what appeared to be a concussion. "Alex? I didn't know you'd be here. I'm sorry. I had nowhere else to go." The baby, a girl no more than 6 months old with a tuft of dark hair, had stopped crying, her tiny hand reaching up to grasp. "Get me a full trauma workup," he ordered the staff, professional instincts overriding personal shock. "And pediatrics down here immediately for the infant." "I'll take the baby, Dr. Reed," offered Nurse Chen, reaching for the child. "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "I mean, they should stay together for now. Let's move them to Trauma 3. As the team worked to stabilize Sophia, Alexander found himself unable to look away from the baby girl. Her eyes, a distinctive shade of amber with flecks of gold, mirrored his own. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. "How old is she?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the medical equipment. Sophia's gaze met his, tears welling. 8 months next week. The timeline aligned perfectly with their last night together, a chance encounter at a medical conference in Boston, 5 months after their breakup. One night of closure that had apparently created much more. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question hung between them, heavy with 5 years of unspoken truths. "You should check her right arm," Sophia whispered instead of answering. "The birthmark." With trembling hands, Alexander gently rolled up the baby's sleeve. There it was, the distinctive crescent-shaped birthmark that had marked every firstborn in the Reed family for generations. "Her name is Emma," Sophia said softly. "Emma Alexandra Reed. I always intended for her to have your name." The world around Alexander seemed to blur as the implications crashed over him. He had a daughter. A daughter he'd known nothing about for 8 months. Anger, joy, and confusion warred within him as he struggled to maintain his professional composure. "Dr. Reed," interrupted Dr. Patel, the neurologist on call. "We need to take Ms. Lawrence for imaging. Her CT scan is priority 1. Alexander nodded mechanically, his medical training taking over while his personal life imploded. "I'll take Emma to pediatrics myself." As he carried his newfound daughter through the hospital corridors, Alexander's mind raced. Why had Sophia kept Emma from him? What had happened tonight that drove her to his hospital, injured and afraid? And most importantly, what happened now? The pediatric assessment confirmed Emma was perfectly healthy, showing no signs of injury or neglect. In fact, Dr. Winters remarked she was one of the most well-cared-for infants she'd seen recently. Whatever Sophia's reasons for secrecy, neglect wasn't among them. 3 hours later, Alexander sat beside Sophia's hospital bed, Emma sleeping peacefully in a bassinet between them. The diagnosis was concerning but not critical: a concussion, 3 bruised ribs, and a sprained wrist. The cause, however, remained unexplained. "I left him," Sophia finally said, breaking the tense silence. "Tonight. For good." "Left who?" Alexander felt his jaw tighten. "Robert Keller." The name hung in the air like poison. Robert Keller, billionaire real estate developer, philanthropist, and, apparently, abuser. "He did this to you?" Alexander fought to keep his voice level, conscious of the sleeping infant. Sophia nodded slowly. "It wasn't the first time. But it was the first time he threatened Emma." Her voice broke. "That's when I knew I had to run." The pieces began falling into place. 5 years ago, Sophia had abruptly ended their engagement, offering no explanation beyond needing space. 2 months later, she'd appeared in society pages on Robert Keller's arm. Alexander had assumed she'd left him for Keller's greater wealth and influence, a betrayal that had driven him to bury himself in work and expansion of his medical empire. "Why didn't you come to me when you found out about Emma?" The question that had burned in him since the moment he'd seen the birthmark. Sophia's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Robert threatened to ruin you. He had evidence of something, I don't know what, but he convinced me it would destroy your career, your reputation, everything you'd built. I believed him." "So you stayed with him? Let him think Emma was his?" "No," Sophia shook her head. "He knew she wasn't his. We never. I told him I'd used a donor. He accepted it because he wanted me, not necessarily a child. But lately, he's been drinking more, becoming more controlling. Tonight, when he grabbed Emma." She shuddered at the memory. Alexander's hand found hers across the hospital bed rail. Despite everything, the connection between them remained, altered but unbroken. "You're both safe now," he promised. "I'll make sure of it." What Alexander couldn't have known was that Robert Keller had already been informed of Sophia's location by a well-paid hospital administrator. Nor could he have anticipated how far a man like Keller would go to reclaim what he considered his property. By morning, Sophia had been moved to a private room in the hospital's secure wing. Alexander had made arrangements to take emergency family leave, something he hadn't done in the 15 years since founding his first medical startup. Emma had captured his heart completely in the span of hours, her tiny smiles and curious eyes erasing any lingering doubt about his commitment to fatherhood. "She has your dimple," Sophia observed as Alexander cradled Emma, feeding her a bottle with surprising proficiency. "And your stubbornness," he countered with a smile. She refused the first 2 formulas before accepting this one. The domesticity of the moment struck them both. This was what might have been, had circumstances been different. The family they should have become. "Alex, about why I left." A sharp knock interrupted her. Alexander's security chief, Marcus, entered with a grave expression. "Dr. Reed, we have a situation. Robert Keller is downstairs with his attorney and 2 police officers. He's claiming Ms. Lawrence kidnapped his goddaughter during a psychotic episode." Alexander's blood ran cold. "His goddaughter?" "He has documentation naming him as Emma's legal guardian in the event of Ms. Lawrence's incapacity. He's claiming her injuries are self-inflicted during a breakdown." Sophia's face drained of color. "The papers, he made me sign them months ago. Said it was just formality for insurance." Alexander passed Emma back to Sophia, his expression hardening into the ruthless determination that had built his billion-dollar empire. "Marcus, initiate protocol sanctuary. And get Diane Blackwood on the phone immediately." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Protocol Sanctuary was the hospital's highest security measure, designed to protect vulnerable patients from external threats. Diane Blackwood was the most formidable attorney in the state, and Alexander's closest confidant. "He won't stop," Sophia whispered, clutching Emma protectively. "Robert doesn't lose. Ever." Alexander's gaze met hers with unwavering resolve. "Neither do I." Not when it matters. He gently touched Emma's cheek. And nothing has ever mattered more. What followed was a battle fought on multiple fronts. While Diane Blackwood stalled the legal proceedings with counterfilings and emergency motions, Alexander leveraged every connection he'd built over decades in healthcare and business. Hospital security footage revealed Sophia's arrival condition, medical documentation cataloged her injuries consistent with assault rather than self-harm, and emergency DNA testing confirmed Alexander's paternity. But Robert Keller's influence ran deep. By evening, he'd secured a temporary custody order based on Alexander's absence from Emma's birth certificate and Sophia's alleged mental instability. "We need more time," Diane advised during a tense conference call. "The DNA results help, but without evidence of Keller's abuse, the court is leaning toward maintaining the status quo until a full hearing." Alexander paced the secure hospital suite, mind racing. "What about Emma's safety in the interim?" "That's our strongest argument, but Keller's team is painting him as a concerned godfather stepping in during a crisis. His public reputation is spotless." Sophia, who had been listening silently, suddenly straightened. "His phone," she said. "Everything's on his phone. The threats, the controlling messages, even videos he took after." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Can you access it?" Alexander asked. "No, but..." Sophia hesitated. "His assistant might help. Megan. She's seen things, covered for him, but I think she was reaching her breaking point too." It was a desperate gamble, but Alexander had built his fortune on calculated risks. Within hours, Marcus had located Megan Davis and arranged a secure meeting. The young woman arrived trembling but determined, carrying a small flash drive. "I've been documenting everything for months," she explained. "The mood swings, the threats, the women before Sophia. I knew someday someone would need this." The evidence was damning. Text messages threatening Sophia if she ever left, security footage from Keller's home showing physical altercations, financial records revealing how he'd systematically isolated her by controlling her access to money. Most disturbing were the recent messages discussing Emma, including his plans to shape the child properly, unlike her weak mother. By midnight, the temporary custody order had been vacated. By dawn, Robert Keller was being questioned by detectives. And by the following afternoon, Alexander, Sophia, and Emma were securely ensconced in his countryside estate, protected by round-the-clock security while the legal system began the slow process of justice. "I never stopped loving you," Sophia confessed as they watched Emma sleep in the nursery Alexander had ordered prepared overnight. "Even when I thought I was protecting you by staying away." Alexander took her hand, careful of her injured wrist. "I tried to hate you," he admitted. "It would have been easier. But I couldn't erase 5 years together, no matter how much I buried myself in work." "Where do we go from here?" she asked, the question encompassing worlds of uncertainty. "Forward," he answered simply. "One day at a time. Emma deserves parents who are honest with each other, whatever shape our relationship takes." The journey ahead wouldn't be simple. Robert Keller's arrest made national headlines, triggering investigations into his business practices and revealing other victims of his abuse. Sophia began the difficult process of healing, working with trauma specialists while rediscovering her passion for architectural design. Alexander restructured his work life, delegating more responsibility to his executive team to prioritize time with his daughter. They didn't rush into rekindling their romantic relationship, instead building a foundation of co-parenting and renewed friendship. Emma thrived under their united care, growing into a curious, joyful toddler unaware of the drama surrounding her early months. 1 year after that fateful night in the emergency room, Alexander found Sophia in Emma's nursery, watching their daughter sleep. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, joining her by the crib. "A dangerous pastime," she teased, echoing an old joke between them. "I want to build a children's hospital," he continued, specializing in families affected by domestic violence. A place where medical care and legal protection work hand in hand. Sophia turned to him, eyes bright with emotion. "That's incredible, Alex. I'd like you to design it," he added. "Your vision, your understanding of what creates safe spaces, it's exactly what these families will need." The project became their shared mission, a way to transform their painful experience into hope for others. Working together rekindled the partnership that had once made them inseparable, but with greater depth and appreciation for each other's strengths. On Emma's second birthday, surrounded by friends who had become family, Alexander knelt before Sophia with a simple question and a vintage emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "Not because of Emma," he clarified. "Not because of our history. But because losing you taught me what matters, and finding you again showed me who I want to be. For you, for Emma, for myself." Sophia's answer came not in words but in the tearful embrace that spoke volumes about second chances and the healing power of love. Their wedding was intimate and joyful, with Emma toddling down the aisle scattering flower petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy. The Reed Children's Safety Center opened its doors the same month, becoming a model for integrated care nationwide. 5 years after that night in the emergency room, the Reed family had expanded to include twin boys who shared their sister's golden-flecked eyes and their parents' determination. Alexander still took occasional shifts at the hospital, believing in the importance of keeping his medical skills sharp. Sophia's architectural firm specialized in healthcare facilities designed with trauma-informed principles. Robert Keller served his sentence, his empire dismantled by investigations that followed his arrest. The man who once seemed untouchable discovered that power built on fear eventually crumbles. On quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the day's responsibilities complete, Alexander and Sophia would sometimes reflect on the journey that brought them together again. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't come to your hospital that night?" Sophia asked once, curled against him on their porch swing. Alexander considered the question carefully. "I think we would have found our way back eventually," he answered. "Some connections can't be broken, only delayed. Even across time and misunderstanding. Especially then." He kissed her forehead gently. "The universe has a way of correcting its mistakes." Their story, from promising young couple to estranged exes to co-parents to partners in every sense, became something of a legend among hospital staff. The billionaire doctor who discovered his daughter in the most dramatic circumstances, who fought for his family with the same intensity he'd built his medical empire, who proved that second chances sometimes arrive in unexpected packages. Emma grew up knowing her origin story, understanding that families can be broken and rebuilt stronger than before. The Reed Children's Safety Center became her second home, where she volunteered from an early age, eventually following her father's footsteps into medicine with her mother's eye for creating healing environments. Life wasn't perfect. Alexander and Sophia disagreed, compromised, sometimes struggled with the shadows of past trauma. But they faced each challenge together, their bond strengthened by the knowledge of what they'd overcome. On the 10th anniversary of that fateful night, Alexander surprised Sophia with a private dinner in the now-renovated hospital wing where they had reunited. "Some might think this is a strange place for a celebration," he acknowledged as they shared dessert under soft lighting. Sophia smiled, the years having only enhanced her beauty in his eyes. "I think it's perfect. This is where our second chance began." To emergency room reunions, he toasted, raising his glass. "And to the night that changed everything," she replied, her eyes reflecting the same love that had survived separation, secrets, and the long journey back to each other. Their story reminds us that sometimes life's greatest challenges lead to our most precious gifts. That family can be found in the most unexpected moments. And that true love doesn't always follow a straight path, sometimes it takes detours, faces obstacles, even separates for a time, but when it's genuine, it finds its way home.